I just want to say hello and welcome to this session of the virtual Library Instruction Tennessee Conference. We're so glad you're here. Library Instruction Tennessee provides spaces for teaching librarians to network, collaborate, and discuss trends, issues, and innovations in library instruction and information literacy. We would like to thank the Citadel Library for providing Zoom access for our conference. And just a reminder to you all that this meeting is being recorded. By continuing to attend this session, you are consenting to being part of the recording. These recordings with captions will be posted on the LIT website after the conference. We ask that all attendees abide by our code of conduct, which may be found on the About Us page on the LIT website. And I'll put that in the chat in just a moment. If you'd like to report an issue, please email us at libraryinstructiontennessee@gmail.com. We have disabled your microphones. So if you have questions for the speaker during the session, please just put them in the chat box and we will include them at the end in our Q&A session. And again, if you have technical issues, you can also email us those as well at libraryinstructiontennessee@gmail.com. Just want to let everyone know that a survey will be sent out after the conference concludes, and we'd really love your feedback to help us improve the experience for next year. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to our presenter. This session is Various Library Instruction Practices with the Pursuit of Student Safety During COVID-19, presented by Dr. Yumi Shin at Lamar State College, Port Arthur. Go ahead, Dr. Shin, whenever you're ready.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Yumi Shin. I'm the librarian at the Lamar State College, Port Arthur. For this session, I'd like to present the changes of library instruction practices with the pursuit of student safety during COVID-19 by introducing 3 different library instruction researches conducted before and after COVID-19. First, let me introduce the background of the institution, Lamar State College, Port Arthur. It was established in 1909 in Port Arthur, Texas, as Port Arthur Business College to educate the workers in the petrochemical industry of Southeast Texas. The college offers more than 30 academic and technical programs, giving students opportunities to transfer to 4-year institutions or to pursue their majors in the job market after graduation. Due to COVID-19, enrollment decreased to 2,312 in spring 2021, which was about 6% less than spring 2020. In the fall 2021, the enrollment number went up to 2,580, which was almost the same number of fall 2020. The Gates Memorial Library was initially built in 1917 as the Port Arthur Public Library and was later placed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1981. The library offers library tours and library instruction classes based on the request of faculty members. The library instruction method changed before and after COVID-19. Before COVID-19, the library only offered face-to-face library instruction classes, and Research 1 examined the impacts of library instruction in the fall 2019 and spring 2020. Since March 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic has significantly affected academic libraries. Due to this unexpected complication, librarians have tried their best to provide the same quality of library services prior to the pandemic. Changing their teaching method was unavoidable for the sake of students and faculty's safety. Numerous academic libraries offered only online library instruction in 2020 and slowly moved to both face-to-face and online library instruction in 2021, including the Lamar State College, Port Arthur. After COVID-19 occurred in the fall 2020 and spring 2021, only virtual learning method was available via video tutorials and synchronous library instruction. Research 2 examined the impacts of video tutorials and synchronous library instruction. In the fall 2021 and spring 2022, both face-to-face and synchronous library instruction were offered. Research 3 compared two different delivery modes, face-to-face and synchronous library instructions, and examined which one was better for the current students learning in Lamar State College, Port Arthur. The first research was about the impacts of library instruction before COVID-19. Since the librarian joined this library, the librarian had recognized the need for assessing the effectiveness of library instruction. However, it has not yet been clearly understood how much the library instruction class affects the student learning, although such an understanding is indispensable to designing and delivering classes satisfying students' needs. Due to a shortage of quantitative study that objectively measure the impact of library instruction on student learning, the librarian decided to conduct a research aiming to increase the understanding of influence of library instruction class on student learning through an experimental study. Among many learning areas, the study specifically focused on student writing as the subject of examination. Based on the literature review, library instruction plays an essential role in helping students learn how to use library resources and services effectively and efficiently. Academic libraries thereby provide students with various types of library instruction classes, including library tours and workshops and credit course and one-time library instruction class. As the demand for library instruction class increases, the research on the significance of library instruction and the assessment of the impact of library instruction has been actively conducted. A few previous studies analyzed the correlation between library instruction and information literacy skills. So the results of those studies discovered the direct influence of library instruction on students' library information skills. The collaboration between librarians and faculty is essential to delivering information effectively via course-integrated library instruction. Many previous studies have investigated the effect of specific library instruction courses on student performance. For example, Zhang, Goodman, and Zia examined the impact of a newly developed online library instruction class module, which also includes optional in-person tutorials on students' performance in a first-year engineering class. The experiment was conducted with students taking college English courses in the fall 2019 and spring 2020. The assessment metric comprised 2 writing assignments with the same level of difficulty and significance. The 2 assignments were completed by the first year and second year students who registered in English 1301, 2 classes, and English 1302, 3 classes in the fall 2019 and spring 2020. Assignment 1 was given and graded before the library instruction class, and assignment 2 after the class. The librarian provided the students with a 1-hour library instruction class after they completed and submitted assignment 1. A pair sample t-test was conducted to analyze the results by using SPSS, a statistical analysis package. The grades were divided into two samples, one for assignment 1 and another for assignment 2. The null hypothesis for the t-test was that the library instruction has no impact on students' writing performance. The alpha level of 0.05 was used as the level of significance to determine the acceptance or rejection of the null hypothesis. In total, 94 students participate in the research. If you see the table, you can see the number in the fall 2019 and spring 2020. Let's move to the data classification. Subset 1 included the grades for English 1301, all sections in fall 2019, while subset 2 comprised the grades for English 1302, all sections in the fall 2019 and spring 2020. In addition, subset 3, which was the entire sample, was also prepared to examine the impacts of the library instruction class on student writing. Each subset was further divided into two groups, grades for assignment 1 completed before taking the library instruction class, and grades for assignment 2 after taking the class. In other words, each student had two grades, which were paired later for the pair sample t-test analysis. Prior to the pair sample t-test, the classified sample data were tested to determine any existing outliers. Subset 1 had 35 pair sample grades after removing outliers from 41 students' grade for English 1301 class. Subset 2 had 50 students' grades after removing 3 students' grades from 53 students' grades for English 1302 class. Figure 1 presents the outliers detected from subset 1 and 2. For instance, 4 students' grades for English 1301 assignment 1 before class were found to be outliers, and 3 students' grades for English 1301 assignment 2 after class. 1 student's grades were detected in both cases. As a result, subset 1 had 35 pair sample grades after removing the detected 6 students' grades. Similarly, 50 students' grades were left in subset 2 after removing 3 students' grades. A pair sample t-test was run to determine if there is a statistically meaningful difference in students' writing performance before and after taking the library instruction class. The test was conducted for all 3 subsets, excluding outliers. Prior to the test, the sample was first examined based on the descriptive statistic for a simple comparison. Table 2 presents a summary of the descriptive sample statistics of the 3 subsets, including means and standard deviations. The increase in a sample mean of each subset clearly indicates an improvement in students' writing. For a more robust examination, the subsets were examined by using a pair sample t-test method. Table 3 summarizes the results of the test. The test essentially examined if the means of grades before and after instruction class are significantly different in a statistical sense, which was determined based on t-value and p-value. All 3 subsets were found to have a significant difference between the compared means, as a very small p-value for each case indicates. The test results clearly indicate that the null hypothesis is to be rejected. In other words, the library instruction class had a significant impact on students' writing performance. Next, move to the discussion. The library and the English faculty developed a supportive relationship with the goal to increase student learning in information literacy. This collaborative effort enabled students to enhance their library skills. The successful outcome suggests that such a coordinated library instruction class should be more widely offered in more classes across the campus to benefit students more broadly. Despite the meaningful findings, the research one had a few limitations. There is a need to test the collaborative approach with more samples in order to reach a more concrete and generic conclusion. In the research one, the impact of library instruction classes was measured within a short-term period. Therefore, the long-term efficacy of the library instruction still needs to be evaluated. In order to overcome these limitations, an additional study should be underway. The study involves more classes in English and other disciplines. In addition, a follow-up assessment in 6 months after the initial library instruction is also planned to evaluate the students' long-term knowledge retention. Research one shows that the library instruction classes could significantly help students learn and hone library skills for finding and using library resources. It was evidently observed in the present study that such improvement was led to enhancing students' writing performance in English classes at the 2-year college level. Finally, this study emphasized the need for partnership between the librarians and faculty in various majors to educate the students efficiently and productively. After COVID-19 occurred, the library should quickly adjust to a remote learning environment. For example, the Open Educational Resources OER page was created on the library website to provide easy access to open textbooks for students and faculty. Chat service is continuously provided to students and faculty who need assistance regarding their research. The library also changed the policy to allow students to check out the library laptops during the pandemic. Lastly, the library instruction was offered virtually until summer 2021. Research 2 examined the change and impact of library instruction during COVID-19. As the librarian changed the library instruction to online after the pandemic occurred, the librarian wondered how online library instruction impacted student learning. So the librarian decided to conduct another research to examine how these changes impacted student learning. Based on the literature review, online library instruction programs can be offered in many different ways. First, online library research tutorials can be utilized with an easy production process at little cost. According to Nichols, Sheffer, and Shockey, online library tutorials were the most cost-effective, time-saving method to deliver consistent content to the large student population. The topics of video tutorials can vary depending upon the needs of patrons. Hugen mentioned that placing activities throughout the tutorials has several advantages. The exercise could help students focus on lectures and provide fast feedback. Second, synchronous library instruction classes via web conferencing can be developed that allow students to learn in real time from a distance. Although the tutorials can assist the students in learning necessary research skills, they may not deliver sufficient information for specific courses. Many academic libraries extended their programs to online library instructions after providing online tutorials. To prepare for live classes, a software program to facilitate courses should be selected, such as Adobe Connect or Blackboard. Synchronous library instruction classes can convey appropriate and in-depth information about the specific topics and provide instant answers from the students taking online classes via the library chat box. However, several problems concerning synchronous library classes were mentioned in the literature, the most troublesome being technical problems included unexpected disconnections, freezing screens, lagging displays, and sound problems as the most frequent issues cited in synchronous library classes. Two available options were offered to cope with the pandemic from the fall 2020 to spring 2021, which were video library tutorials and synchronous library instruction classes. First, 4 video library tutorials were developed via Blackboard to teach students how to navigate library resources. The tutorials included how to find books, how to find articles, how to do in-text APA citations, and how to do in-text MLA citations. 2 surveys were conducted before and after watching videos to compare the differences to measure students' experiences. The first survey determined the user's previous library experiences and confidence levels of searching resources. The follow-up survey examined the participants' perspective and confidence level changes after watching video tutorials. Second, synchronous library instruction classes were introduced via Blackboard Collaboration Ultra to provide the same quality of instruction as the traditional face-to-face class. As with the video tutorial surveys, the librarian conducted 2 surveys about the students' library experiences at the beginning and end of class to determine the impact of synchronous classes regarding their learning outcomes. In addition, the pre- and post-tests were done to check the students' knowledge about the MLA in-text citations. The surveys of video tutorials were collected by faculty through Blackboard. Once the faculty gathered the results, they were sent to the librarian. The librarian then evaluated the data to finalize the results. On the other hand, the surveys of the synchronous classes were conducted during the class time via SurveyMonkey. The librarian solely collected the data and analyzed it after each class. In total, 132 students participate in the research. As can be seen in the table, 54 students participate in the video tutorial surveys and 78 students completed synchronous class surveys. This slide is about video tutorials result. Survey 1 was conducted before watching the video tutorials. Feedback from the first survey indicated that the students consulted on research with instructors the most, which was 46%, and the librarians the least, about 6%. Regarding library instruction, 26 out of 54 students responded that they received library instruction in the past from library orientation, while 9 students had no prior library instruction. About 52% of the students expressed their level of searching library resources as somewhat confident. At last, 46% of the participants described their citing ability as fair. The second survey clearly showed the student found video tutorial helpful in many ways, such as finding articles and books from library resources. Almost everyone except one student stated being confident in finding sources after watching the videos. Let's move to the result of synchronous library instruction class. All the participants agreed that synchronous classes were beneficial, with almost 65% of the participants expressing that the class was extremely helpful. The majority of the students indicated they became confident in finding books and articles after the class. The MLA pre and post test showed the students improved significantly on the MLA post test. The average accuracy rate in the MLA post test was 71%, whereas the MLA pre-test rate was only 27%. About 2.6 times better grades were seen on the post test. Research 2 had a few limitations. Because of the low participation and small sample size, it was difficult to reach concrete conclusions. The impact of video tutorials and synchronous class were measured within a short-term period. Therefore, the long-term efficacy of this method still needs to be evaluated. Research 2 showed that online library instruction method could help students learn library skills for finding and using library resources. It was observed that such improvement and confidence led to enhancing students' performance in classes at the two-year college. Finally, this study emphasized the need for collaboration between the librarians and faculty in different majors to teach the students more effectively. Research 3 was about the comparison of face-to-face and synchronous library instruction in the fall 2021 and spring 2022. Since the fall 2021, the library has offered both face-to-face and synchronous online library instructions. The librarian questioned the effectiveness of two teaching methods and decided to examine how face-to-face and synchronous online library instructions affected student learning. Several works of literature have researched the effectiveness of different teaching modes compared in-person to online library instruction and tried to finalize the best teaching delivery mode. For example, Gorman and Stanley also conducted the research to evaluate the efficacy of online and in-person instructional method when teaching research skills. The result indicated that online group had better mean scores compared to in-person groups. The objectives of the study were: 1, to examine the effectiveness of two teaching methods, which were face-to-face and synchronous library instructions, by comparing the post-test results of two delivery modes. 2, to finalize which method affects better students' learning. 3, to find out the confidence level changes after the library instructions and preference of delivery modes. To compare the effectiveness of face-to-face and synchronous library instruction, the librarian conducted 2 surveys. Before class survey was done to find out students' previous library experiences and their library skills. After class survey aimed to investigate the confidence level changes after the class and preference of delivery modes. Lastly, the pre and post tests were done to check the students' knowledge about the MLA in-text citations. The librarian has started offering face-to-face and synchronous library instruction class in the fall of 2021 based on the teaching preference of the faculty. In fall 2021, 16 library classes were delivered in total, 11 classes face-to-face and 5 online classes. On the other hand, 18 classes were held in the spring of 2022, with 17 classes face-to-face and 1 online course. The main classes requesting library instruction every semester are from the English department. The table shows the different subject classes requesting library instruction in the fall 21 and spring 2020. As can be seen, most library instructions were for the English classes. Other subject courses were the speech and art class. 2 surveys were collected via SurveyMonkey before and after library instruction, regardless of teaching modes. The before class were done to examine the students' previous library instruction experiences and their confidence level in using library resources. The after-class surveys were observed, the confidence level change and preference for teaching method. The librarian then evaluated the data to conclude the results. In addition, 2 tests, pre and post tests, were conducted via SurveyMonkey before and after the library instruction to examine the knowledge improvement regarding MLA in-text citation learned from the library class. The pre and post test contain the same questions to compare the scores before and after the library class. Then the librarian finalized the result and discovered the knowledge outcomes if applicable. The total participants of the study were 401 students. 353 students participate in face-to-face library instruction classes, whereas only 48 students conducted the surveys and tests in synchronous library classes in the fall of 2021 and spring of 2022. The face-to-face class participation rate was lower than in synchronous class, since it was more challenging to check to complete the surveys of more students. Moreover, the number of participants differed in each survey as the students tended to leave the class without conducting the after-class surveys. For example, 413 students participate in the before class survey, whereas only 353 students conducted the after class surveys. So the minimum number of participants was used to calculate the participation rate. The before class surveys show that face-to-face and synchronous library class students consulted with the instructors the most on research. However, about 30% of students in synchronous class experienced no consultation at all. Students in both classes explained that they received library instruction before via library orientation the most. However, many students also indicated that they had no library instruction in the past in both classes. 23% of students in face-to-face classes and 33% of students on online courses. The students in both classes mentioned that their confidence in using library resources was average. The majority of students in both classes agreed that they needed assistance with library resources and citations. Surprisingly, however, 37% of face-to-face class students indicated they did not need any help. The after-class survey results were similar in both face-to-face and synchronous classes. For example, participants in both classes indicated more confidence after taking library instruction classes. However, the results of preference surveys were different. 90% of students in the face-to-face classes prefer in-person library instruction, whereas only 42% of the synchronous classes prefer in-person instructions. This result indicated that students who register for in-person classes prefer learning in the same method. The MLA pre- and post-test showed students in the face-to-face classes improved significantly on the MLA post-test. About 3 times better grades were seen on the post-test. The average accuracy rate in the MLA post-test was 82%, while the MLA pre-test rate was only 28%. On the other hand, the MLA pre- and post-test in the synchronous classes showed a similar result as well. About 3.3 times better grades were examined on the post-test. The average accuracy rate in the MLA post-test was 72%, whereas the MLA pre-test rate was only 22%. When comparing the post-test result only, students in the face-to-face classes had better scores than the students in the synchronous courses, 82% versus 72%. However, it was observed that students in both face-to-face and synchronous classes received significantly better scores on the post-test, and improvement rate was almost the same. Therefore, the results were concluded that students could learn similar learning outcomes regardless of teaching modes. Despite the librarians' countless efforts, the library instruction classes dramatically decreased after the pandemic, as can be seen on the table. Furthermore, the pandemic and the winter storm in Texas affected library classes tremendously in the fall of 2020 and spring of 2021, and caused a dramatic decrease in library instruction. On the other hand, in the fall of 2021 and spring of 2022, library instruction classes increased and returned to a similar number before COVID-19. Students and faculty adjustment to COVID-19 might be the main reason for the upsurge. Let's move to the research tree limitations. The number of participants in each survey differed because the participation rate after class was lower. Students tended to leave the class without finishing the surveys. Therefore, better control in conducting surveys was necessary to have the same number of participants before and after each class. Furthermore, the impacts of both teaching methods were measured within a short-term period, and consequently, the long-term efficacy of these teaching delivery modes should be evaluated. Due to the lack of the time, a minimal number of questionnaires were utilized to examine the students' perspective in surveys and knowledge improvements in tests. Therefore, in-depth evaluation of surveys and tests might be necessary to attain more accurate results. Due to the successful launch of synchronous library instruction, the Gates Memorial Library could offer both in-person and online library classes depending on the faculty choices. This study proved that students could use library resources to gain research skills regardless of the delivery modes. It was also observed that such improvement provided students with confidence in classes at the two-year college. Finally, this study emphasized the need for various teaching methods to satisfy the different preferences of faculty and students. The result of the study suggests a few practical recommendations. First, as the growth of distance education continues, the library will still be challenged to provide library instruction that satisfies user demand for facilitating off-campus access to library resources. Therefore, library instruction delivered face-to-face and online should be offered to fulfill both on and off-campus classes. Furthermore, library instruction appears to have positive outcomes regardless of learning environment. Consequently, library instruction should be a critical part of college program curricula to enable students to succeed in college. Throughout these experiences, I encountered several challenges. The budget is always tight, so I searched other sources outside the school, such as the Texas Library Association or American Library Association. Administrative support was not always there to pursue my plans. I had to persuade people to understand the rationales, and sometimes it worked or vice versa. The collaboration with faculty was not tangible due to their busy schedules. Continuous effort to communicate with them was required. Most of them might ignore, but you only need one faculty to start with. Then from there, you can expand your relationship and network with other faculty. Low motivation and participation of students were challenging as well. To encourage students, I used various ways like goodies for students who volunteered to answer. Lastly, a lack of resources comes sometimes. Mentors or sample guidelines are hard to find to ask advice about issues or plans. As you can see in this presentation, students can learn no matter what method we can offer. So as I conclude this session, I want to emphasize one thing. Never give up despite challenges facing you. I'm a small community college librarian in a small city, and I did it. That means everybody here can do it as long as you have a desire to improve your library instruction. For me, I always try to stay motivated, continue working on professional development, set up short-term and long-term goals to pursue my ultimate goals. Here are the references for the research provided here. This is the end of the presentation. Here's my contact information. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me anytime. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Shin. That was super impressive. So we've got a few moments left. I just want to turn it over and see if there are any questions. You can type in the chat, or if you'd like to raise your hand and speak, we can unmute you and you can ask directly that way.
Thank you so much. You're welcome.
All right, thank you all for attending this session. I just want to remind you all that the session was recorded and that will be available once we process the transcript in the next few weeks on the LIT website. And then a reminder that our next sessions start at 11 a.m. Eastern time here in about 15 minutes. So we hope you will continue to join us throughout the day. And thanks again to Dr. Shin.